Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known his deeds among the peoples.
Sing to him, sing praises to him, tell all his wonderful works.
Good morning and happy Mother's Day to everyone to whom that logically applies. We're glad to see you this morning, and if you're visiting with us on behalf of the congregation, let me extend a special greeting. On behalf of the congregation, we're happy that you're here, hope that you enjoyed the service, and that you will come and worship with us again. As is always the case, the announcements are printed in your bulletin. I'll call your special attention to several, as well as add a couple of additional pieces of information. You'll notice that your bulletin is smaller this morning. Usually we put just about everything in there that's happening, and a lot of the different articles or notices come in week after week after week. So after a while, it's hard to pick which items are recent. So what we're going to do is something a little different. We're going to have the full bulletin the first Sunday of the month, and then we'll condense it a little bit for the rest of the Sundays in the month. But if you perhaps weren't here last week and want to know some of the other things that are not included in this bulletin, there are copies of the full bulletin in the Friendship Foyer, and you can pick one of those up. So we're trying to do this for those who want to be able to find quickly what's going on right now, but we also can't lose some of the information which comes week after week. If you would make a change on members and friends who are currently ill, George Weiss is in Morton Plant Hospital, not Morton Plant Rehab. He was in rehab, there was some problems, so he's back in Morton Plant Hospital. Don't forget next Saturday, we just found out about it, so this is the only week that we can announce it. The Letter Carriers Food Drive and RCS Food Bank is looking for volunteers to help them with stocking the shelves and things like that. So there is a sign-up sheet in the Friendship Foyer if you wish to help out next Saturday, and the information is there in your bulletin. Marketing Committee should remember that their meeting is this week, and it's going to be a little different. It'll be here on Wednesday at 10, and then the Property Committee is going to be meeting this coming Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Cindy Carroll, the daughter of Jan and Dick Burke, as you know, has passed away, and the memorial service will be this coming Tuesday at Pasadena Community Church. Visiting hours will be from 5 to 6, and the service will be at 6 o'clock. And the family asks that in lieu of flowers, if you would like to, you can make a donation to hospice. Let us now begin our service of worship.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to church, and especially welcome to our mothers that are here today. A special happy Mother's Day to each of you. If you'll join me in reading the call to worship responsively, please. Today, we celebrate Mother's Day and the festival of the Christian home. Today, we remember the influences that made us what we are. In our worship, let us thank God for loving parents and nurturing families. In our worship, we express our gratitude for that which is positive in our lives. Raise your hands, your hearts, and your voices. Let our worship begin. Let us call upon God as we read our invocation in unison. God of the morning and the evening, of the beginning of life and the end, of the large and the small, of that which is unseen and that which is beyond our comprehension, be with us in this place at this time. Touch our hearts and our memories as we consider the influences which have shaped our lives and the people who have provided those influences. And then when we consider our blessings, enable us to turn our homes into places of love and support, of tolerance and faith. Make us good sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends and neighbors, as we strive to make our world better for all its inhabitants, beginning with where we live. And hear again our words and our intentions as we pray the prayer of Jesus. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. offering.
On this Mother's Day, O God, we celebrate the family and what it can be, what it should be. We hold up those mothers and fathers who have demonstrated their love not only for their children and other children, but for all people, by the way they have lived their lives and by the way they have tried to make their homes and communities better by their very presence. We realize that neither they nor we are perfect, but if and when they and we do the best that can be done, well, we know that in your love for us, you accept that and us while encouraging us to constantly improve. Help us take what we consider to be the signs of a good home: love, respect, support, tolerance, acceptance, gratitude, selflessness, generosity, faith, courage, strength, and implement them in all aspects of our lives. Enable us to put the gifts we possess to partner with you in the creation of a better world. This is our prayer this morning, and now we come in silence and humility to speak from our hearts with you. Amen. This morning I want to read to you a very familiar story from the Hebrew Scriptures. I'm reading from the second chapter of Exodus, verses 1 through 10. Now a man from the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and then she saw that he was a fine baby. She hid him 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and plastered it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds on the bank of the river. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river while her attendants walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the child. He was crying, and she took pity on him. "This must be one of the Hebrews' children," she said. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Yes." So the girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she took him as her son. She named him Moses, because she said, "I drew him out of the water." Let us think about these words as we continue together in our worship this morning. Preaching on holidays with religious significance or connections can be the easiest and or the hardest task of a pastor. And I would suggest that this is particularly true regarding Mother's Day and Father's Day. Why easy? It is easy because the general subject matter is kind of picked for you. For instance, on Christmas, one preaches about the birth of Jesus and what it means. On Easter, one preaches about the resurrection of Christ and what it means. On Labor Day, one preaches about work, and on Independence Day, one preaches about freedom. On Thanksgiving, one preaches about gratitude, while usually using the pilgrims as examples. So those of us who do this preaching don't have to come up with a new theme on such occasions. Why hard? It is hard because with such parameters in place, one sometimes has difficulty thinking of new ways to talk about the same things and deal with the same subjects. Okay. But why are Mother's Day and Father's Day even harder? They are harder because in addition to what I already suggested regarding the other annual holidays, it is at least somewhat imperative that one use good and positive examples of motherhood and fatherhood while trying to relate these to the listener's own experiences. And the truth of the matter is that not everyone is a good mother or father. Additionally, there are bound to be in the congregation women and men who would have liked to have had children but for some reason could not or do not. So they cannot relate on a personal level as parents and must therefore approach the subject from a theoretical perspective while remembering their parents as parents and not themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Okay, so what to do? All I can think of is to present stories and illustrations which point to the qualities and characteristics of good mothers and fathers, while suggesting that we learn from such examples and apply these lessons to our own lives. Thus, those who have been blessed with good parents can, like them, be good parents. Those who grow up in dysfunctional homes can learn from their parents' mistakes and try to avoid them. And those without children can still love children, mentor children, influence children by becoming the kinds of adults that children can look up to and learn from and have relationships with. With all that in mind, I selected the story of the birth of Moses as this morning's scripture lesson because I believe that Jochebed, Moses' mother, was a remarkable woman. Like all her fellow Hebrews in Egypt, she was a slave. According to the tradition, they had immigrated there when Joseph, he of the coat of many colors and the son of Jacob, was in power, standing just one step lower than the Pharaoh in terms of influence and prestige. But in the 400 or so years since that time, their position had deteriorated. They had gone from welcome guests to free labor, and their lives were severely restricted. Now, apparently because the Hebrews were so prolific that Pharaoh was beginning to wonder that their numbers might soon be uncontrollable and dangerous, he instructed Hebrew midwives to kill all male babies born to Hebrew women. Jochebed gave birth to a son, but was not about to let him die. So she conceived a plan to save his life. She hid him for as long as she could, 3 months, and when this was no longer feasible, she placed him in a weatherproof basket and set him adrift in the Nile River, near where she knew that Pharaoh's daughter bathed every morning, hoping that the princess would find him and keep him. Indeed, Jochebed had her daughter Miriam hide nearby in order to report back what had happened. Her plan worked. Pharaoh's daughter recognized the baby as a Hebrew child and, as the story states, took pity on him. At this point, Miriam approached the princess and told her that she knew of a woman who could serve as the child's wet nurse. The princess named the boy Moses and gave Miriam the baby to be raised by this woman until he was older, thus enabling the biological mother to care for, at least for a few years, the child that she had born. So it is that I see Jochebed as a very positive mother figure. She loved her child so much that she was willing to do anything, even give him up, for his well-being, which in this case meant saving his life. She was also clever enough to figure out how to give him up, but still keep him, although she knew that eventually she would have to give him up again, but not until she had had the pleasure of enjoying his growing up years, during which time she would be able to teach him about his people, their history, their religions, their traditions, their story. Obviously, this all worked out, and he was later reunited with his brother and sister in the great Exodus adventure. Think about what it must have been like for Jochebed. And some of what she must have gone through is what every mother goes through. And I imagine she must have spent a lot of time waiting and worrying. Knowing the horrific edict of the Pharaoh, calling for the death of male Hebrew babies, she would have worried during those months of pregnancy while waiting for her child to be born. Will I be able to hide him from the authorities, or will his life end even before it really starts? Then, after she had developed a plan, she would have worried while she waited to see if it would work. Will Pharaoh's daughter go to bathe this morning? Will she find the baby? Will her maternal instincts click in so that she grows attached to him and decides to keep him? Will Miriam be able to convince her to let me raise him, if only for the time being, before he goes to live with her? During Moses' childhood, I am sure she, like all mothers, worried about his overall welfare, while having the additional burden of waiting for and worrying about the loss she faced when he again left. And later, again like all mothers, she would have worried about how he would eventually turn out and what his life would be like as she waited for him to reach adulthood. There's nothing easy about caring and concerned motherhood. My mother, although she was a lifelong Lutheran who attended a community church, subscribed to a magazine called The Catholic Digest. She was very ecumenical long before it became fairly common to be so. Well, I inherited some of her copies of the publication, and one from 1989 contained a piece by John Murray entitled, "My Mother, the Patron Saint," a short piece which perhaps offers some insights concerning what I've already shared. Let me read it to you. My sister Kitty, my mom, and I are eating potato chips and teasing each other. Since I'm not gainfully employed, I'm an easy target. I am taking a pretty good pounding when Mom delivers the coup de grace. Well, she says, if you don't find something soon, I'm just going to have to make a novena to St. Jude. This is always Mom's last resort, going to the patron saint of hopeless causes. Kitty, I say, when they make Mom a saint, what will she be the patron of? Oh, that's easy, she answered, the patron saint of waiting. The patron saint of what, Mom wants to know? Of waiting, Kitty repeats. You know, you're always waiting for us to come home and everything. Funny how we take things for granted. All the waiting Mom has done is so much a part of our lives that until this moment, I have never really seen it. She had 10 babies, 1 died at birth, and so was pregnant for 90 months of her life, 7.5 years of waiting to give birth. As we grew up, there were all those minutes and hours in waiting rooms at the doctor or the dentist or the hospital, and all that waiting for us after practices or lessons or meetings. I'd come out of the gym on cold winter nights after basketball practice, and there would be the station wagon. I'd climb in saying, sorry, Mom, we had to run extra at night. That's okay, she'd answer. I just got here. And then came the high school years when she waited for us to get home on Friday and Saturday nights. She'd be lying in bed, maybe saying the rosary with Dad snoring next to her. Then she'd hear a car door slam and footsteps coming up the front walk. And she'd sigh, another one had made it back alive. When you'd sneak by her in Dad's bedroom, there was always a whisper. Did you lock the front door? Yeah, Mom. Or if it was really late, she'd meet you at the top of the stairs. Where have you been, she'd ask. I was worried. Then she'd hit you with the car accident line. I didn't know if you'd been in an accident or what. That's what really made you feel bad. When the kids began moving away and then coming back to visit on holidays, Mom began standing watch at the living room window. She still does. What time do you suppose they left the city, she asked Dad. I imagine the traffic is bad. Do you think the roads are icy? They should have been here by now. And then a car turns into the driveway and she says, oh, thank God they're here. Pretty soon she's on the front porch greeting the company. Well, she says, what took you so long? As for me, I can't stand to wait for anything. I am cross with friends when they are not on time. I am impatient with the cashier at the supermarket when I have to stand in line for 5 minutes. I get fidgety at red lights. I know this is not a good way to be, and I want to change, but it's not easy. Now, if only there were a patron saint to intercede. Sound familiar? Waiting and worrying. I think most parents do a good bit of both, and it never ends. My mother died at the age of 87 and still worried about her kids, who ranged in age at the time from 54 to 62. No, she never stopped worrying about us, as well as about her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all of which had little to do with how we were getting along in life, but rather and primarily about those possible unexpected happenings that could have adversely affected our lives, like accidents. And when we were going to or coming from a visit, she would wait for our arrival, and then later at the other end for a phone call to tell her that we had gotten home safely. We do the same with our kids. Again, in quotation marks. If visiting, we let each other know when we leave the house and when we expect to arrive, and then we call when we get home to let each other know that we got home. Now, why am I making a big deal about this? I think this kind of parental waiting and worrying is a sign of love. And love is what family should be all about, and connectedly, what God is all about. Children, particularly as they approach the kind of independence which they believe should accompany the arrival of their teenage years, tend to resent some of the restrictions which are then still in place. And yet they also appreciate them, even if they would never admit that. I once dated a girl who had all kinds of freedom. Indeed, she had few, if any, parental restrictions. I remember once taking her home at the same time her 9 or 10-year-old brother was walking in the door after midnight. She later confided to a mutual friend that she wondered if her parents really loved her, that they didn't seem to care about her the same way my parents cared about their children, because unlike my siblings and me, she had no similar rules and constraints. Here was one of those homes in which the tail wagged the dog, and her parents, perhaps in an effort to be pals with their kids, stopped being parents. Waiting and worrying. Is that all it takes to be good parents? Of course not. And if these become too extreme, they can be problematical. But on the whole, they symbolize or represent the rest of what good parenting is all about, and all of which stems from love. This is my 35th Mother's Day sermon, that I have preached at the chapel by the sea. So there is a sense of here we go again about it. But I guess that at the same time, the subject matter never grows stale or old. And we can never hear enough about love, parental or otherwise. If the example of Jochebed encourages us to be better mothers, better fathers, better mentors, better people, then once again the Bible has done its job. And if we follow and implement the lessons which it teaches, we have also done our jobs. Let me close with something I found in a publication called The Old Union Reminder. The piece is titled, "Blessed is the Mother," and begins with those words. So, blessed is the mother who can hold on to her children while letting them go, who puts a tranquil home ahead of an immaculate house, who knows a kind act will be remembered longer than an easy word, who really believes that prayer changes things, whose faith in the future sweetens the present, whose Bible never needs dusting, whose sense of humor is alive and well. Waiting and worrying. Love. Let us go from this place with the intention and the commitment to make our homes all that they can and should be. And in our efforts, may the Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace, both now and forevermore. Amen.